join us as they come. So it is 12:04. I would call the meeting to order. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? Any changes or additions? I'll accept a mover and seconder to adopt the agenda, please. Moved by Bill, seconded by Rob. Thank you. Any additional agenda items? Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes? Are there any errors or omissions? I'll entertain a motion to adopt the minutes. Joseph, seconded by Rob. Thank you. So moving on to 6, new business and updates. What we'll do here is we will walk through everything. Rick, I'll turn it over to you. How about up until 6.5, where I'll just have a few comments, and then we'll move to 6.6. Back to you, Rick, okay?
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Okay, 6.1, Small Business and Entrepreneurship Center. Our final funding is underway for a new 3-year term. So this is the last year of our term with FedNor, and we're looking at getting it all finalized. There is some challenges getting all our financials still in order, but we are getting there. We're working closely with Karen, so we're at that point where we should be able to pull the trigger very shortly. Millworks has 2 new office rentals, so they're at about 60% capacity, which is good. We're seeing increased interest again back in Millworks with the decline of COVID, or I don't know if you can call it decline, but the lesser intensity of COVID now. So we are seeing a lot more interest there. We sold our first sponsor marketing program, which is interesting, to a placement company from India. And what they do is they help place individuals into industry within Sault Ste. Marie. So it's a good thing. And it's a $10,000 invoice for us. So it's a real good deal. For that $10,000, we'll provide them with some signage and some opportunities to brand within Millworks. And we're looking forward to more of those, because I think we want to generate a little more revenue wherever possible. Any questions on that?
I have a quick one, if anyone
Sure.
else. So the Millworks, how is that moving forward with all the restrictions being lifted? Is there still social distancing requiring and masking?
Yeah, so as of this week and next week, so we're still married to the city policies, and the city within the building for city employees is still requiring masking. People coming in from the outside are allowed to come in as they see fit. So that's totally up to them. At the end of next week, the city is going to do a revisit on the policy and where we're going, depending on what's happening with the infection rates in Algoma.
Okay, thank you. So whatever the city has as its primary protocol, that's what's going to be mirrored upon Millworks, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, 6.2, priority EDC projects, the industrial lands. This one's been a bit of a labor of love. It is still in with our purchasing department and our legal department. I expect to hear something this week. I've been bird dogging them to see who the contract will be awarded to. And this was the contract that would allow a realtor to market any lands that we have, industrial lands that are owned by the city. So that one's still to be announced. Any questions? Okay, 6.2.2, the Canada Water Agency. We continue to develop the website. If you haven't had a chance to go to the website, that's CWASSM. It's worth taking a look at. It's really quite well, presents the city in a nice manner. And Kathleen, who's on the call, has been instrumental in driving a lot of that, and it's looking very good. And I think it presents very well. So we'll see what happens with that. There's still been no announcements from the feds as to when this is going to happen, but we are obviously in a good position for it. Any questions on that?
How many additional bids are there for that now? There was one from Regina, I think, which was the leading one. Do we know how many people are in the race?
Yeah, so far, the ones that we've been able to identify, Regina is their self-professed forerunner, but we don't believe that for a minute. And Thunder Bay announced about 3 weeks ago that they want to throw their hat in the ring. So the good news is we're way out in front of this, with the website, and we've already done the community feedback, and so we are way out in front of this. So I think we're definitely a strong contender. Some of the, and this is not confirmed as of yet, but some of the feedback we're getting is that this may end up being a somewhat virtual agency that will be land somewhere, but most of the employees will be located at home or in different areas. So we're not sure what that's going to look like yet. It hasn't been firmed up, but there have been some indications that it would have a home location, but not 200 people. It would be maybe 10 people, and the rest of the people would be virtual. So we're just waiting on better definition from the feds.
Have we started any sort of underlying government relations work on this one?
As much as we can. And Kathleen, you may need to jump in on this, but I believe Elaine Ho has been working closely with them, and she has connections there. But Kathleen, if you can add to that.
The mayor and Corey have also been working with to try to get wires into the feds to better understand the process and what's going on. So I've kind of left that political sphere to them. And then, as Rick mentioned, we also have Dr. Elaine Ho Tassoni on the task force, and she is a researcher at Algoma U in freshwater, and she has a really strong network in this area across Canada. So she was actually the person who got us some of that intel from our local NRCan office about what the feds might be thinking right now in terms of direction for a Canada Water Agency. I also just wanted to note that of the regional NRCan offices across the country, ours is the only one with dedicated freshwater researchers. So that also makes a pretty good case for the physical headquarters to be co-located here.
Yeah, but the decision may not be one based on logic. It may be one based on politics, right? So you may want to, I know a lot of the things that we do for PUC, we end up with hiring Sussex or somebody like that to do some work for us to make sure that the seeds have all been planted in the right place, right? So, it may be worth looking for some dollars to do something like that. But anyway.
Great. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thanks, Kathleen. Okay, 6.2.3 ROI update, which is our lead program. Still chugging along there. We're really getting them focused now. So the quantity of leads, they still owe us leads. They owe us 15 right now. Now the quantity is slowed because we're rejecting. When this thing first started, they were taking almost anybody and anything. And trying to get us involved with companies that were looking more to source remote workers than to locate their business in Sault Ste. Marie, and using us as a kind of you could almost call it a placement agency. So we have worked with them closely, so we've tightened that up. So we're seeing the leads still come in. They're better quality now, and they're much more focused on where we want them to be. So we're continuing with that. We're marching forward. So any questions on ROI?
How far are we determining their tangible results from that whole exercise?
Well, in the presentation, I think you'll see that there's a pretty good indication as to where we stand. So there's definitely, I can tell you now that we're tracking all these. We have our CRM system, which is called Executive Pulse, and we have these all entered in there and tracking through that as well. So we're capturing all the activities and all the future steps and next steps on each one of these. So I'd say it's in pretty good shape. Any other questions on that? Okay, 6.3 film industry. Travis and I had a meeting with Rolling Pictures a couple of weeks ago, and they're actually quite visionary. They have a 10-year vision of developing Sault Ste. Marie into a global film production hub, which means that it would be a 24/7 operation, 100, 150 people that could service globally any of the post-production needs that people would have. So that got us excited when we heard that, because that's a good forward-looking place to be. Obviously, we had discussions with them on how we could accelerate that, because we'd like to see those jobs sooner. But we do have another meeting with them later this week to move this one forward. I would say they're also, they are interested right now in participating in the proposed team center and putting in some type of display for the visual arts in there. That's in its early discussions. But they want to demonstrate, this is a great industry for kids to get into, because the average salary when they come out of university, typically they drop right into about a $70K a year job. When you put that against our average salary in the Sioux of about 43 to 44,000, not a bad place to be. So definitely we want to pursue this one. I think it's a good deal for us. Any questions on that?
Is it a matter of public record who the principals are in the corporation?
Principals are, I'd have to dig up the names. I know his name's Joe. I don't remember his last name off the top of my head, Joe, but I can get that to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Robert Peace is the other. Robert Peace is more their, what's his term? I think his title is Director of Community Development. So his job is to really engage with everybody. And then Joe, his last name escapes me, is he's like the chairman, the president.
Let me know later.
Sure. Millworks update we talked about already, 6.4. 6.5, I'll turn over to you, Paul.
Yeah, so just to touch base on the bylaws again, I have received some feedback about changes to the bylaws. Really, if anyone feels that we need to update them, I'm looking to have that information within the next 2 weeks. So if everyone can review the bylaws, we did update them last year, so I'm not projecting any substantial changes. I think they are relatively up to date. But if you review the bylaws and you feel that there are some changes, please forward those on to both Rick and myself, and we'll filter those into some considerations for our next board meeting. That's it.
Okay. So then we'll move directly into 6.6. So this is the year-end PowerPoint that we presented, not in its entirety to council. We did a brief version of it. This is the entire presentation. Out of respect for your intelligence, I'm not going to go through each slide in painful detail and take up the rest of your afternoon. I am very cognizant of death by PowerPoint. So I'll breeze through this very quickly. I would suggest if you want me to elaborate on something, just stick your hand up and I'll slow it down and we can have a discussion around that. Fair enough? Okay. So if we go into the contents, basically, next slide, Sam. There we are. So essentially, just take you through the highlights, 2022, how the transition's been going, and then our different areas of operations and a couple of select projects. And then the appendices, I'll leave you to look through yourself. Just as a word of caution on the appendices, because I noticed with the council, they took some of the numbers like on the calculator as gospel, but those are really examples only on the economic development indicator calculator. So that is not related to anything. That's an example purely. Next slide, please. So transition year for staffing. As you know, we brought myself on, we brought Kathleen on, and we brought Joe on, and we met them all. And I'm quite pleased with the team, and I think we've got a great beat on the future with this team. Next slide, please. Transition year for operations. So as you know, we did the website update. We've been working hard with our executive pulse system. Our social media presence is ramping up. We're getting a lot better at that. And we're really moving forward, I think, on our support services. So overall, the transition, as we see it, has been going fairly smoothly. Next slide, please. So Millworks, as we talked about, has started doing marketing packages, which is cool. And we really want to start turning that into a somewhat revenue generating venue as well. I mean, obviously we want to provide service, but we also want to try and earn a little income where we can. The business attraction strategy you're all familiar with, which is the ROI project. Port of Algoma, we're advancing, and I do have a meeting on Friday with Algoma Steel again to see where we can take that one. So we're going to establish a committee to keep that moving forward. We are now expanding more into the green hydrogen, biomass, recycling, energy storage. We see those as verticals that we want to include and pull into the family now. And moving into 2022, I think we're focused on, let's get the industrial land moving. I think some of the key things there are how do we tie into the electric arc furnace implementation, and what are some of the spin-off industries we can target? I think that's going to be a critical area for us and a huge opportunity. And then our processes, like using our sales funnel and activity rates and things like that to manage our own productivity will be a big part of it. And we're going to continue to support downtown growth. I want to make sure that we're very focused on that and stay involved with that. So the next slide, please. You can read it. I mean, this is really just a summary of the whole presentation. It's just, the process we went through last year was hiring in the first quarter, analyzing what was going on in the second quarter, starting to develop out new processes and programs in the third, and implementation in the fourth. So that's kind of the summary in a nutshell. Next slide, please. Business retention and expansion. This is Kathleen's area. As you can see, she's had a lot of activity going on there and participating in developing programs in hand with Millworks as far as sharing funding opportunities with the local business community and developing special projects. That has been part of Kathleen's responsibility and taking a lot of her time up. So she's been a key driver of the water agency bid and foreign trade point. Next slide, please. So business attraction, that would be Joe. And he's doing a lot of cold calling and networking and reaching out to everybody he knows, and he's starting to get a lot of traction. He's got a pretty good sales funnel going now. He's got over 50 leads in there. And he's got potential job creation of about 700 right now identified. So obviously we're going to push hard on that and see what we can pull in. Hydrogen's been a big part. We've been approached by a few people now as far as hydrogen development. So that's an area that we're trying to make ourselves smarter on and attending some conferences and things to get a little more versed in that. Other than that, I think everything else, the ROI program has got potential job creation of 105 so far. So we'll continue to track that. And as we move forward, as you mentioned, are we going to have some concrete numbers? Absolutely. Next slide, please. Small business and entrepreneurship, Millworks. I think this is just a batch of numbers. I mean, it's pretty much status quo there. We have got the lease renewed at the canal site, and they're just doing a good, solid job there. With the addition of Kathleen, she's being very engaged with driving programs through there as well. We are all now participating in different, putting on different events. And the other thing that we're doing now is we publish a biweekly article on LinkedIn, and it's just called Superior Strong. And each one of us takes a turn at penning either an article or sharing an article of interest to the business community. Next slide, please. Select projects completed or in process, as we're all familiar with, the ITB, real estate services, the industrial land, and transitioning the activities. Next slide, please. So, as I said, we've got a great team. We're looking forward to a good year this year. We've got a toolkit in place now that will help us promote and support Sault Ste. Marie, as well as help us look inward and make sure that we are operating on all cylinders. Number of positive indicators for the community point to future growth opportunities. Some record numbers last year in permits issued, and obviously we'll be providing regular updates. Next slide, please. So we'll stop here. The appendices are there. You can take a look at them. If anybody has any questions on any of the appendices, please feel free to reach out to me. And if you have any questions on the slides, we can discuss them now, or if you want to just drop me an email, if you have any questions, that's fine as well. So at this point, I'll open up. Any questions on this? Did I keep it succinct enough? Yeah, okay. At that point, I'll turn it over to you, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Thanks for the reports and the updates. So for the upcoming board meeting, what I was proposing is that we would meet in May. Our AGM is going to be scheduled for June, but I am assuming we are going to have a special meeting sometime in between now and May. But does that work for everyone, or do people feel the need to have another monthly meeting in April? No, Bill? Okay, so let's schedule it for, let's just do this now. For May the 18th, which would mean our executive meeting would be on the 11th of May.
Yeah, I'm out of town May the 18th, but I'm sure you'll have enough others.
You know what, if we already know that 20% of the members here are not going to be available, why don't we have we can push it. It's either the 3rd or 4th Wednesday of each month. Are you around on the 25th? Because Rob, with your transition into the executive as well too, I think you're one of the more important people to have around.
25th works, yeah.
So why don't we have the executive meeting on the 11th, and then we'll have the board meeting on the 25th. Now, we do have a closed session agenda, so I will entertain a mover and seconder to move us into closed. Moved by Rob, seconded by Terry.